Hello and welcome back again to Rage Gaming and more Dragons Dogma 2. Yeah, I've actually played the game and this is my footage because I was lucky enough to be invited to Capcom's offices here in the UK to try it. We just released a video about the experience and all the interesting stuff that I wanted to talk about, but in this video I'm focusing hard on the two vocations that I could play. We're talking about the Mystic Spearhand and then the Magick Archer. So here's everything I learned. As a basic and short explanation though, stamina is the main resource in the game, so in both the Spearhand and Archer's cases, I had no mana or limited ammo or anything like that. Everything you're doing, from basic attacks, jumping and sprinting, special abilities and all that, consuming stamina. And if you use it all, you're going to be left stumbling around and very exposed. Also, there's a key feature in that you can run up to allies or enemies and grab them. That could be picking them up to throw them, which does surprising damage when thrown against enemies, or if you throw them off a cliff. Or of course, you can latch on and climb a target to reach whatever weak spots it might have and land some heavy attacks on that spot up nice and close and personal. We begin with the Mystic Spearhand though, the one that I first started playing when I was learning the game here. And it's all about melee and magic as a combination. Very balanced so that you can play it melee and ranged, and that is very true. You can see at the bottom right all of my different options. We start with a basic attack combo of Twin Cut. When you spam this, you do a couple straight hits, and then very quickly you'll be channeling this double scything attack, which is really effective when you get to a weak spot on an enemy that's stuck in place. On the other hand, the heavy attack combo is kind of like a magic cut. You send out these sweeping arcs of magic damage, which can be very good for range. It kind of auto locks on targets, so if you're dealing with say birds or something in the air, it will just automatically hit it, which is really nice. But more advanced than that is the R1 ability, Redoubted Bolt. You can tap it and sort of do a ranged light tase. Against a weak or very small enemy, it will actually stun them, but you'll need to hold and charge that for a powered up version for a much more reliable stun. You hold it and then it sort of pops on yourself, then you can release and it'll auto lock and go to a target, or seemingly you can free aim it. Enemies stunned by this, you can run up and do a heavy attack for a sort of critical animation, dealing fantastic damage, and often it would just kill anything I did that to. And it should work against bigger enemies if you go to their weak spots when they're down too. If you send out a charged bolt at a target and then hit R1 right as the bolt actually hits, it'll explode in a juicy hit, even more potent, giving you kind of a spammable ranged option in those tighter scenarios where you need to stay away from the direct fight. Or if when the bolt actually contacts, you press X to jump, you'll teleport straight to the contact location of the bolt. So if you're free aiming it, you could technically aim at the enemy's head, appear at their head, latch on, and then start up close and personal while holding on, stabbing them in the eye or something. All that in one button was awesome. But then we have the weapon skills. To do these, you would hold L1 and then you would choose from the 4 currently equipped options. So humble offerings here is to throw objects. These need to be physical objects that aren't ridiculously big, you know, they're too heavy for you, but it could be a rock or a boulder. It could be a generated resource, like maybe your mage has generated some ice shards and now you can pick them and throw them around. Or it could literally be a stunned and downed enemy, or even a killed enemy in their corpse. You can do that and it'll automatically target an enemy and throw it at them, dealing really good damage for basically no cost. And I would strongly recommend, if you're going to play this class, to really learn what you can throw and rely on it. Next was Mirror Vesture, which is basically just a shield. You give yourself this shield for a short period, but interestingly, if there are allies nearby you, you'll buff them as well. So you're able to buff all of your party at once if you're nicely grouped, so you can use it to protect yourself right before you're going in for like a melee fight or a big hit's coming in. I actually would use it right before going for a revive, which takes like 5 seconds to channel, just to protect myself and help ensure the channel actually goes off. Then we had Dragons Dogma, which is basically a dash forward and stab. It would auto lock, but it seemed also possible to free aim. This was great as a gap closer to get started in a fight, or just use it in general exploration for traversal. But I did use it a lot to basically launch to an ideal spot to latch on and go for a weak point. A neat effect of this though was using it to get away from a fight, because I don't have like a reliable block or a roll or something like that. Using this teleport to get away from a fight right before they're going to retaliate or do a big hit was actually really good. Lastly, there was the Fangtooth ability, which is a simple and very useful leap up and then straight back down, stabbing on the way up and thrusting down on the way back. This is a physical move, right? So you could actually use it to reach up and attack, say, a bird in the air that you can't quite reach. Maybe you're dealing with a big enemy and there's a high up weak spot you just can't reach. Using this to jump up and smack it could be great. Or you could go up and down and land on the target. Now, while you're latched on and crawling around on a target, you're expending stamina just to do that. But if you use an ability like this to land on it and you're just stood there, you can use normal attacks and get some great DPS without spending stamina. So there's just a lot of potential for all of these abilities. But that was everything I had with the Spearhand and all the different stuff that I used with it. Let's now talk about the Archer. The official description of the Magick Archer is that it's long-range combat with magical arrows that can be either very offensive or very supportive and healing, and that's definitely reflected in the gameplay. You have a lot of control. So let's cover all the details of what I could do while I was playing. It has a unique basic attack called Quickfire, which basically fires off some arrows close range that are not massively effective, but you don't need to aim. If you set up like a certain arrow buffed up to do with Quickfire, that would work in combination, but vice versa, if you hold R1, you do Rivet Shot, which is basically just aiming and using this lock-on feature to target enemies. It'll reveal where the weaknesses are, the different hitboxes. The longer you actually aim at them, the more arrows kind of lock on, and then you fire them all off, and they'll fly homing in on the target, which is really effective when targeting the right weak spot. On that note, you have Conversion on Triangle, which basically is this circle that's smaller or bigger depending on which mode you're in. The smaller one leads to tighter shots for bigger DPS on, say, one target location. So if you've got a head that you know is a weak spot, you want it to be tighter so all the arrows go into that. But if there's a bunch of enemies, you could maybe do the wider range conversion and then spread that for AoE, hitting many targets at once, which could be better if they're weaker targets, and spreading the DPS is just more effective. It also has Dash, which has been more relevant to the Archer than, say, the Magic Spear. It allows for some serious sprinting at the cost of stamina to reposition, get away from enemies, especially those that are up close and pressuring you. I did get to change some of the weapon skills out during the play session with the Archer. I started with the Flame Fang Arrow, which was a single slow-moving fire shot that would explode on contact for huge damage. When you fire it, it kind of puts the camera on the arrow during the flight, and then you can turn it as best you can, so you control it carefully to land in an enemy's weak spot, like the eyes or the heart or whatever is best aimed for. You can also surprisingly spam it. By pressing R2, you cancel that auto camera control, so the arrow will fly straight forward from wherever you left it going. Using that method, you could say fire one off at a downed enemy's weak spot, then press R2 to let it fly. Now you're back in control of yourself, you prep and fire another one off, ultimately leading to way more Flame Fang arrows over time, and is how I killed the Griffin really quickly. Next was the Frost Hunter Bolts, kind of like a slowing shot that fires off many arrows when charged up via your Rivet Shot, but it leaves over a frost buff on the bow for a period of time, allowing for all the following basic arrows to get some frost damage added, and that works fantastic as a slow to prevent enemies actually reaching you, or potentially even full CCing them, leaving them exposed. Definitely good to use at the start of a fight to start controlling the enemies and benefit from that lasting frost buff for, say, some quick fires if an enemy starts pressuring you up close. Another one of the abilities I started with were the Remedy Arrows, which basically allows you to fire shots not at the enemies, but your allies, and of course it heals them. They're like these yellow bolts. It's a nice burst of healing when fired off at a short, quick burst, but you can charge it up to increase the effect, and if you fully charged it, it could then become a full-on revive shot, so you could revive your pawns from range, which was absolutely incredible. The last weapon skill that we had by default was Ricochet Seeker, which basically is a charged up minigun of arrows, firing off tons of them, but there's this crazy recoil, so you have to really pull down when you're firing it. The arrows will bounce off objects and do so many times when given the opportunity. So you see me use it in this cave, you can see the ridiculous potential if you can get it bouncing. So just firing it directly at an enemy might not necessarily be the best. It might be better to bounce it off a wall that the enemy's next to, so the arrow bounces between the enemy and the wall many times for much better DPS. Pretty cool. The physics are very clever in this game. Then I did swap in two other abilities to try. There was Candescent Orb, which is basically this fire orb dealing fire damage over time in a much larger radius. But the last ability I tried was Hailstone Bolt, which is basically a charged up ice rock. You charge it and increase the size and impact of the shot, and so aiming it had some real weight because it would fall in an arc when you fire it. A physical attack could knock an enemy off their position. I found it was really relevant against the rock golem and its weak spots compared to, say, using normal arrows. But yeah, that's just my overview of the two vocations I played and everything that I learned about their abilities and the discussion with Zaid, the guy that was helping me run the session. Like I said, I know there's going to be more to each of these vocations. I just wasn't able to go into the menus and really mess with it. But already with these different basics and showcases that I did look at, there's a lot of potential there, and I feel like I could do even more if I had more time to experiment. I hope this was interesting or educational to you if you're interested in these vocations. Be sure to check out the other video about the play session as a whole and all the many interesting different things that I did and learned. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.